Hi, family. I wanted to make a quick video because a few of you have asked me questions about me doing the intermittent fasting and ketosis, or keto for short. And so I've sent you information, just kind of like a brief overview of what it is that I'm doing. And often the question that I get back is, well, tell me, what does it look like in a day? So I wanted to kind of give you like an idea of what a day of eating looks like for me and how you might be able to try and make it work for you. Basically, how that looks for me is that I stop eating after dinner. So I try to keep dinner sometime between 6 at the latest, maybe 8. Weekends it might get a little bit later because weekends can be kind of crazy. But so generally I'm eating dinner between 6 and 8 p.m. And then I'm not going to have any snacks or anything or any caloric drinks or anything like that after dinner. And then the next time I eat is going to be in the afternoon the following day. So for instance, if I have my dinner at 7 o'clock, then I don't want to eat or drink anything with calories between, 7 p.m. and 16 hours from that, which is going to be 11 a.m. So, and the reason for doing that is that you really want to keep your insulin level as low as possible for as long as possible. No matter how small it is, every time you eat something, your body is going to have an insulin response. And basically that insulin response is a hormonal reaction that's going to tell your body to move the sugars from what you ate into storage. Which basically ends up at some point turning into fat if it doesn't get burned off effectively. So when you have that insulin response, there's no possible way for you to be burning fat at the same time. So that's why you want to do the intermittent fasting, is because you have to not be eating in order to be not having an insulin response. So for that period between 7 p.m. at night and 11 a.m. or longer the next day, I am allowing whatever insulin reaction I have had to kind of subside. So after about 12 hours or so for most people, your insulin level will go back down to baseline. So let's say 7 a.m., then it's going to be 12 hours. So that means that between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m., I've got these 4 hours where my body can actually be in fat burning mode. And that is about burning your existing body fat. We're no longer worried about burning the fat from the food that we ate. But now at this point, because our insulin level has subsided and reached baseline, then it's going to put us in a place where we can start trying to burn some of our existing body fat, which is what most of us are trying to do, right? So back to the eating. So at 11 a.m., I will have my lunch. And then I generally don't eat anything else until dinner time. So again, dinner time might be 6, 7, or 8 p.m. So I'm having a fasting period in between lunch and dinner as well, because again, I'm trying to keep my insulin levels as low as possible, as long as possible, right? Starting out, I don't recommend trying to just do just the 2 meals, just the lunch and dinner. I would say in between the lunchtime at 11 or noon or whatever time you decide to make your lunch, between that time and dinner, it's okay if you're going to snack, but just be wise with your snacking. My lunch. So when I have that lunch, and for me, 11 is a little bit early. So sometimes my fast is more like 17, 18, maybe even 19 hours. So for me, though, when I have that lunch, again, we're focusing on keeping your insulin levels as low as possible. And because insulin is mostly responding to sugar in your blood, then you want to make that lunchtime meal when you break your fast. You want to keep the amount of sugar or carbohydrates, same thing. You want to keep that amount of sugar in that meal as low as possible. So if you can make that lunch meal something that doesn't include carbs, or the carbs are only vegetables, then you're winning. So like for me, a typical lunchtime meal is going to be a frittata and maybe like a spinach dip that I like to have. So the frittata is going to have plenty of protein, plenty of fat, very, very little carbs. The only carbs in my frittata are going to be whatever vegetables I put in it, which are usually going to be red bell peppers and green onions or something like that. And then the spinach dip is mostly spinach and then like some cream cheese and some butter and maybe cheddar or something like that on top of it. So again, it's high fat, and then I'm getting some fiber and things like that from the spinach. So there are some carbohydrates, but not nearly enough to cause the type of insulin response that's going to keep me from being able to burn fat throughout the day. To get to a point to where you don't feel like you need to have that snack in between that lunch meal and that dinner meal, you need to make the lunch meal very, very satisfying. So that's the good thing about trying to eat like a ketogenic meal, is that ketogenic meals are very satisfying because they're full of fat. And fat keeps you kind of satiated for a longer time. So, and that's another reason why there's so much fat in that lunch that I have with the frittata and the cream cheese and the spinach and all of that, because I'm trying to make it so that I feel pretty full all the way up until dinner time. So if you're going to try to do that, don't try to limit your calories to start off, like don't go crazy, but don't try to have like this teeny tiny meal because you're trying to lose weight and I need to reduce calories and all of that, because you're going to get hungry between that 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock meal and dinner time. And then if you allow yourself to get hungry and you're caught off guard, you're going to eat some crap. You're going to eat something that's not good. You're going to eat something that's not going to be pushing you towards your goals. So don't do that. Make sure that meal is satisfying enough to push you throughout until dinner. Dinner time for me is usually, sometimes it's a variation of whatever my family is having minus the starchy carbs, or sometimes I'll just completely make something different. I am a fan of doing things like making a bisque. Because if you make a bisque, you're basically using a ton of heavy cream, a ton of butter, maybe some vegetables like onions are in there. So that's not a whole lot of carbohydrates. And then a meat that's also going to have some protein and some fat. So for me, that's a really great dinner. Another thing that I like to do is you can make a salad out of just about everything. So if the family is having burgers with buns, then I'll just simply have mine on a bed of lettuce, and I might add some avocado slices to it, or I might add like an aioli or something like that has like egg yolk and fat and fat and fat, because I'm mostly trying to eat fat because I am following a ketogenic diet. If you're not necessarily trying to do ketosis yet and you're just trying to do the intermittent fasting, then, I'm going to say make dinner whatever you want to make it. Enjoy your food. But if you can move to a ketogenic diet, then you're going to kind of set yourself up for even more success sooner than if you were not doing ketosis. Just make sure that when you eat dinner, you're planning that when I finish this meal, I'm fasting until tomorrow. So try not to eat at 10 or 11 o'clock if you know that you're going to be hungry, early on throughout the day, the following day, because you just kind of set yourself up for failure. So one more tip, because you want to make sure that that lunch meal is that low carbohydrate meal. You want to make sure that lunch meal is fatty instead of, high carb. So meal prep. It only takes a couple hours every week to go ahead and meal prep. And that way you don't have to worry about what you're going to eat every day for lunch. It takes the guesswork out of it. So you don't have to make a decision. You don't have to tell yourself not to go to your favorite deli, or you don't have to tell yourself not to go to your favorite Thai restaurant or whatever. You already have it there. You already know it meets your goals. You already know that it's going to be a part of you being successful. So meal prep. So the most popular two things that I make for me and my husband are, I make the frittata, which I mentioned before. The frittata is basically going to be, I use about 10 eggs. I might use maybe like 2 teaspoons of baking powder in there just for some fluff. I beat that real hard, beat it like crazy. And then I might use like 2 teaspoons of baking powder just to add a little fluffiness to it. I might whip in maybe like about a 1/4 cup of heavy cream so that I'm adding some extra fat to it. And then I'm just dumping in some shredded cheese and like a really, really flavorful meat. So some breakfast sausage of some sort. Usually beef sausages or beef summer sausage have a lot of fat in them too. So it adds flavor and it adds fat, and it's exactly what I want. And then, of course, adding in like some red bell pepper and some green onions or something like that for flavor. Season it however you want it. I make it in a cast iron skillet and just kind of start it on the stove. And once I see that it's kind of starting to cook on the sides, then I throw it in an oven at 400 and let that cook for like 20-25 minutes or so until you see that the egg is done all the way through. Slice it up, 6 slices or 8 slices, whatever suits your fancy. And then that's going to go in my husband and I's lunch for the next 3 or 4 days. The second thing that I make on a regular basis is a spinach dip. It's very, very easy to make. You basically saute some onions in a hell of a lot of butter because, again, you want the fat. I can't say it enough. You want the fat. I like to use Kerrygold Irish butter because it's grass-fed and it is delicious. It is unlike any other butter on the market. But basically, you saute the onions in the butter. And then once your onions have kind of gotten to translucent phase, then you go ahead and you can add in some defrosted frozen spinach. You can use fresh spinach if you want, but you have to keep adding it and keep adding it and waiting for it to wilt. So I prefer to go with the frozen spinach defrosted. Add in the spinach, start your seasoning with salt and pepper, whatever other seasonings you like, garlic powder, whatever. And then once your spinach is pretty warmed through, then you go ahead and add in like an 8-ounce package of cream cheese. And then you're just going to kind of be mixing and stirring. I like it to be a little looser, so I might add in a little bit of heavy cream or some full fat coconut milk. And again, just season it a little more. I like to use sea salt because on a ketogenic diet, you lose some of your electrolytes, and sea salt helps you kind of recover some of those. So I like to use sea salt in just about everything that I cook. Where was I? Oh, so you're mixing it up. You got the cream cheese in there, the spinach, the onions, all of that. You add a little bit of heavy cream or coconut milk if you want to have that in there. And then, you can go ahead and put that in the oven. And you can just sprinkle a little cheese on top if you like. I like cheese, so I'm happy to add it to just about everything. But yeah, put a little cheese on top, a little shredded cheese, bake it in the oven. It comes out, it's delicious. Like, I will eat that on a fork. I will dip my frittata in it. I will dip just about anything into spinach dip. I love it. It's delicious. It's outstanding. If you want, you can chop up some artichokes in there too. I haven't done that in a while just because it's an extra step and I don't need it. I like the spinach just the way it is. So another one that I make on a regular basis is store-bought meatballs. Like, I like to cook, but I don't always have time to be making a ton of different dishes. So I will buy these store-bought beef meatballs. They have plenty of fat, moderate amount of protein, very few carbs. I will put those in my meal prep containers with some of that spinach dip, and I will dip those meatballs in that spinach dip, and I am a very, very happy girl. So that's it's an easy thing to do, and it's delicious and it's fatty, and I can eat that and be full the whole day. So whether I'm doing the meatballs and the spinach dip or the frittata and the spinach dip, oftentimes I'll include some almonds or some olives in my lunch as well, just in case I'm feeling like I want something more. Oftentimes I don't end up eating them, but it just gives you a little something extra if you're worried about being hungry. And if you do feel like you need something in between meals, it'd be better to have that than to have a handful of Doritos. What's another thing that I make sometimes? Oh, so this past week I made a chicken salad and some homemade keto crackers. So chicken salad is another one that's so easy to do. So you can buy a whole chicken and bake that or grill it or put it in a slow cooker, whatever you want to do. It ain't hard to bake a chicken or cook a chicken. Eat the thighs, eat the legs. Those are dark meat. They're going to have plenty of fat in them if you're trying to follow a ketogenic diet. Eat the wings, and then take the breast. So here's another one that you can do store-bought. You can buy one of those rotisserie chickens from the grocery store and just take the breast from it, shred it up with your hands or with a fork or chop it up with a knife, whatever. Put it in a bowl, add some mayo, add a little bit of mustard. I like to add some sweet relish, salt and pepper, boiled egg, whatever. Some people like to add celery. My husband hates celery, so I don't add celery. You can add celery or celery salt. Some people like to add dill sprigs, like whatever. Season it how you want, play around with it. But it takes like 10 minutes. Like, it's so easy to make a quick chicken salad, and it's good. Like, it's very, very tasty. The keto crackers were easy too. Like, the keto crackers might take a few minutes. It's not a long time. With those, what you do is you're going to take like about 2 cups of shredded cheese and 2 ounces of cream cheese. Mix that in a bowl don't mix it. I'm sorry. You want to take like 2 cups of shredded cheese, 2 ounces of cream cheese, add that to a bowl with about a tablespoon of almond flour is what I used. I think other people might use regular flour. I used almond flour. Microwave it for exactly 1 minute. And then you're going to kind of like stir it, or really kind of fold it rather than stirring it. And it's going to create like a little soft dough. Let it cool for a minute. And while you're doing that, beat yourself an egg. And then once that's cooled a little bit, you can mix the egg in, because if you do it while the cheese is hot, it's going to cook the egg and it's not going to turn out right. So mix all of that together. You'll have like this nice ball of dough. Season that. I did like salt and red pepper flakes and rosemary. I love rosemary and I love red pepper. Red pepper touches just about everything, whether it's flakes or cayenne pepper or red bell pepper. I love red pepper. So mix that up, and then you're going to get 2 sheets of parchment paper that you're going to, line your pan with parchment paper and put another sheet on top, and then roll it out with your rolling pin. Get your pizza slicer, slice that up into little squares, big squares, small squares, whatever size squares you want. Keep in mind when you're rolling it out that the thinner the cracker is, the more crispy it's going to be. If they're kind of thick, then they're going to end up being a little soft and they won't feel very cracker-like. So kind of roll them out fairly thin. Think cheeses. And then you're going to bake them at 450 for about 5 minutes on each side. Doesn't take long at all. Whole time to make it is maybe 20 minutes, including the baking time. But that's something you could have that with that spinach dip. You could have that with the chicken salad. You can have them by themselves. Like you can have that with just some slices of cheese. Anyways, it's going to be high fat, low carbohydrate, and delicious. And you can season those crackers however you want. So I'm going to make another batch today, but instead of the rosemary and red pepper, I bought this chili lime seasoning, and I'm very interested to see how that's going to turn out. I will let you know. So I hope what you got from this video is, how to spread out your meals during the day if you're trying to introduce yourself to intermittent fasting, and how to be most successful with it. And the key is going to be that first meal when you break your fast, that lunch meal. That's the one you want to try and remove the carbs from. If you got to have carbs at dinner, that's fine. But that first meal, when you break your fast, you need to remove those carbs if you possibly can. And if you have to have carbs, they need to be vegetables. Maybe fruit, maybe some berries, not a pineapple or an apple or anything like that that has a hell of a lot of sugar. You don't want to do that. But yeah, I hope that you're able to, use some of those ideas for meals. If you have further questions, I'm always available. And what else? I don't know. So I hope this is helpful. I mean, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll answer as soon as I possibly can. Update on my big guy. He's doing really, really well. He is still losing weight and body fat, and he has kicked it up a notch by going to the gym more regularly. So as I'm recording this video, he is at the gym working it out. And I'm very, 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 very proud of him. So hopefully, I'll get him to allow me to take like some before and after pics once he's seen some more success. We'll see. He doesn't really love the camera. Anyways, thanks so much. I will try to find some time to either find some links to the basis of some of the recipes that I normally use, or if I really have some time, then maybe I'll type them out the way that I actually make them, and get those posted one day, someday, maybe, hopefully. Anyways, thank you. Bye, y'all.